by month 6, we no longer needed to dip into our pockets. So we were covering all of our expenses.
Nice.
And then by month 12, year 1, we were $4 million in revenue and $1 million in EBITDA. And then after that, it just went real quick.
Welcome to the Scalability Code, the podcast that helps you get out of the shit show and start growing your business. And now for your host, Matt Haney.
Here we are today, another episode of the Scalability Code. Today is a special day for me because joining us today is Marc Cortez. Marc is the CEO of a company called Converge Medical Technologies. And Marc is a former client of mine, joined us today. So Marc, thanks for joining us.
I'm happy to be here, Matt.
Awesome. So as I do with all interviews, I always say, like, when we first introduce ourselves to somebody, it becomes this: how quickly can we get through our 1-minute elevator pitch to get to the meat of what we're talking about? Mm-hmm. But today we've got some time, and I want to go back and talk about your entrepreneurial journey from where you started and sort of where you are today. And this is one of those times where more information is better, and we have the time to talk through it. So when I look back at my journey, there was a moment in time when I was introduced to an entrepreneur, and it changed my trajectory. And I'd love to know your kind of moment at some point where you decided entrepreneurship was for you.
Well, that's a great question, because I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. I spent the majority of my professional career working for somebody else, and the majority of it actually working in durable medical equipment sales for an entrepreneur himself, right? And it wasn't really until he told me that he wanted to sell the company and gave me the opportunity to buy it that I went out and explored what it would take to actually do something like that. And ultimately that kind of fell through, but through that process, this happened in 2018, rather, I took a pause and stopped him, like, wait a minute, I'm essentially running this company for this guy. He's making all the money. He's out there skiing every day. I'm like, I just learned how to raise money in the last year. I'm like, why don't I just do this for myself? And so it was really him. It was a blessing that he actually did not allow me to buy his company, because it really forced me to go out and partner with actually some really great individuals to form our company, Converge Medical Technology. And it's been a learning process, but it's an industry that I know really well. And so it was kind of like doing the exact same thing I had done with a different product line. And so it's been a lot of fun. And I've been able to not only get the same benefits I had in working with people, and I work with people I like. So I have about 80% of our management team I've worked with for 15 or more years, because they all kind of filtered over to me as they left that company. But we've had new challenges because we started everything from ground zero, and it's been a lot of fun. That's
awesome. How long have you been in DME?
Now, I started in DME, so we're looking at 22 years.
That's awesome. And you did, what was your stint? Like you spent majority of it at one place before you founded Converge?
So I spent 15 years at that company. And that was somewhat of a startup as well, but I started in sales and rose to be head of sales for a decade. And then we've been in business now 7 years.
So when you think back to the first 22 years ago, you were younger than you are now, but you're working alongside a visionary entrepreneur, somebody that created the business model, right? And how early were you into that business?
He created the product. He may not have created the model.
There you go.
So I came in pretty early. They were fumbling through the process. It's an amazing product line, and they kind of knew a little bit of what they were doing. I was fortunate enough to be early enough into the process. So they had proof of concept for about a decade. But when I came on board, it was really actually developing how to actually sell the product and moving boxes, essentially. So I really was there from, I'm going to say, the ground floor.
That's awesome.
After he had proof of concept.
You got to build a business with none of the liability or the downside.
Correct.
Which also means you didn't get into the upside either. But
correct. Correct.
We all
have to. We right?
all. Yeah. No, the opportunity to learn from someone else's pocketbook is good at some point. But you were with him for 15 years.
It was, and he had a great partner that came in about 5 years into my journey, who was operating as our CEO. A gentleman by the name of Eugene Sung, who had been an operator really his whole career, not an entrepreneur, but a really, really strong operator. And he mentored me, and we worked together. Essentially, he's number one, I'm number two. And I learned a lot from him, how to build, scale. And it was a very beneficial relationship. So he's who I would attribute my growth to the most.
And during that part of building that business, did you take different roles, or were you always on the revenue side?
Um, it was a family-owned small company. So
Yeah.
in
So you're wearing
title,
all the hats.
I wore a lot of different. I had a dabble in everything. So I was definitely on the revenue sales side, but I also had to move into compliance, warehouse management, billing and collections. I had dabbled in HR and everything. And so, which at the time seemed like a lot of work. As it moved into this, our own thing, it was actually great because I had scope over everything that I needed to start a business.
Yeah. It was the
This was
ultimate MBA and in growing and managing people. And how quickly were you able to get out of kind of revenue in that business? Like, meaning, how quickly were you able to hire staff and start managing sales and then focusing on some of the other operational things?
in that business. I mean, it was, again, I started out just as a sales rep. And
Right.
so we scaled in that. I was in that role for 2 years. And once I moved into management in that role, we started to scale pretty quickly. I only spent a year and a half as we'll call it like a district or regional manager. Once I moved into head of sales, we grew that business from top line. When I took over as head of sales, we were at 13 million top line, and we grew it to 46 million in the 10 years I was there. So we had double digit growth year over year over year over year.
That's awesome.
And it scaled. We had a sales force of, I want to say, 18. We ended up moving to close to 90 during that time frame, and then hired all the
That's
staff.
crazy. And did you do that by adding products or expanding reach?
Expanding reach. We had a pretty small suite of products. But we needed to transform the business when I took over to not only grow the revenue, but grow the profitability of it. So we had to actually
Right.
move towards a more difficult side of the business, which for us is in the VA workers' comp space, where you have to really prove authorization, navigate. So we created a sales model that was replicatable to actually train our reps to target correctly, to sell, to learn how to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately on the back end side to how to bill and collect.
Awesome.
And that really grew the profitability of the company.
So fast forward 15 years into this, now you get an opportunity. You mentioned earlier, but I'd like to pick on it for just a second. You had the potential to buy that business?
He approached me in 2018 and let me know that, hey, I think I want to sell the company. I thought I'd work there for the rest of my life. It was a family-owned company. They were very family. I was very family-oriented. I met my wife there,
Very cool.
and we were both sales reps and ended up getting married. And I came back and had a discussion with a friend of mine who was in M&A, also an entrepreneur, ended up buying his own company and running it. And we just started talking about it. And he said, you could raise money to buy that. And my father-in-law, who is a serial entrepreneur, I talked to him about it, and he advised, go back to this guy and say, give me 90 days before you actually really take it to market. And I did, and he did. And in those 90 days, I found a capital partner out of Dallas, a PE firm that was going to put an LOI in. And then it was really at that point, I think he started holding the brakes, and it ended up being an okay, I got an opportunity to see over the wall of what was possible.
Yeah.
And that's the gift he gave me.
That's it. So then you immediately said, all right, that kick in the pants has got me to look and start your own gig. So then you, from nothing, started Converge?
Yeah. I decided exactly what you said is like, okay, I've worked my butt off. I see what's over on the other side, and I need to find a product. I could do everything else. And so we began to look, and I found a really unique product, which is called the MedTech lumbar extension machine. It's been around for over 30 years. The manufacturer had some discussions with them. They were on the verge of filing bankruptcy. The compliment I got, and they told me how their business model was working, they were trying to do what we had established at our previous company.
That you've been doing for 15 years and started from
And they
zero.
were doing it poorly. And so
hold on. So were you still moonlighting at your previous company, kind of bridging the gap between payroll and figuring out how to and working that, or like, what was that transition like? Hopefully no one hears this, but
call it moonlighting. It was just, on my downtime on a weekend, I'd be, exploring.
But you got to do that. You got to mitigate the risk you have against your needs and figure out how to do it. And those processes, that's not quick, right? You can't.
We were still highly on target. despite
Yeah.
challenges at our previous company.
And then you're trying to go negotiate with the purchase of this device or licensing or whatever. Did that
Yep.
take forever?
No, it didn't really, because the benefit that we had is that what we had established in our previous company was really excellence in the manner of business or what we actually did. And so we had a name. We've created. It's a really unique space. Not everybody's in it, but we did a really great job of it. So they were aware of who we were. They had an investor that had designed a competitor to our last company. And so it was pretty simple. It was really easy for me to pick apart everything that they tried to do. It did not take very long. And we entered into like a licensing agreement.
So you licensed the product. What was the timeline from when you kind of figured out the licensing model? Obviously, you had the revenue model because you'd done it for 15 years and you were going to flip that into a new product. But when did you start making money? I mean, when was your first point of revenue? Because at that point, the business is losing money. You have some licensing agreement. You don't have revenue. Like, how quickly did it take you to get it to revenue?
Really, really quickly. So we went out and did a capital raise for $1 million, just enough really to hire people.
Got it.
What the other company gave us in the transaction was some equipment that we actually can go out and sell. So we formed the company, and then January is when really boots hit the ground, which was myself and two other guys that used to work with me. We all kind of jumped off the ship around the same time together and formed this with two partners that came over from the previous company, from MedX.
Yep.
They knew how the product worked. That was about what they gave us. They didn't know how to sell it, but they definitely knew, the clinical aspect, which is very different dealing with back pain to what I previously worked with. And we knew where to go, and we knew how to secure the business. So from that million, we bought more equipment, payroll and what have you, to make sure that we didn't have to dip into all of our life savings to do this.
Right.
By month 6, we no longer needed to dip into our pockets. So we were covering all of our expenses.
Nice.
And then by month 12, year 1, we were $4 million in revenue and $1 million in EBITDA. And then after that, it just went real quick.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And you brought over your peeps, man. What a great opportunity. Put the band together again and move them over and start doing it. That was, how many people? Was there 4 or 5 of you that jumped over?
Initially that formed together. There was myself and three of my reports. So we formed the company together. And so the 4 of us, we were the start with the 2 other partners from MedX. And then slowly, as people lost their jobs at the other company, mainly, we pulled over other people. So when I would hear through the grapevine, so-and-so was let go, I maybe had some misalignment with the owner of the other company on who was good and who was not.
Right.
We started pulling them over. So we've had at one point about a dozen all management level folks that ultimately came and worked with us.
That's awesome. So I have an interesting story which you were directly a part of, and I think it's one of my favorite pivots to mention. So Mark was introduced to me, and we come in and we meet a couple meetings, and we're gonna discuss working together. And then the first meeting I have with Mark, you get notice of this problem that went down. Tell us that story.
Well, I'm not going to tell too much.
As much as you be vague, obviously, but you had a business pivot you had to execute.
We did. We had a huge pivot.
You lost from a contractual purpose, or for some reason you lost a large, 25% or 30% of your revenue, right?
Yes, and so we lost actually about 50% of our revenue.
Wow.
Maybe a little bit more, maybe about 60. Actually, in all reality, almost within 4 months. The first hit came really on your first day, and it was a pretty big blow. And I will have to say, like, after we went through we had a great first meeting, and then that evening is when everything, hell's fire came. And on that next day, I want to give it to you. Like, I had spent the whole night fielding phone calls, going through all the worries that everybody had, including my own. I came in the next meeting on our EOS annual, and I was ready to send everybody home. And I do have to commend you for taking control. It was awesome. and say, okay, like I'm here, you've paid me. How are we going to fix this? And that
That's
ended up
awesome.
being the beginning of a real pivotal transition for our business. So I do thank you for that. That was and holding strong, because
Yeah.
that was one of the few times I was just mentally exhausted where I'm like, just go home. And
Yeah. That was a day I'll never forget, but I will also not forget, the 6 months after that, where I got to watch a team of people that have known each other for, I guess, 20 years at this point, you and your business partners really lean in and realize that you guys were in trouble, and the core group of people weren't going to let that slow them down. You guys had seen something similar before in other businesses. You obviously had, dealt with this, but everyone was interested in finding a common solution. It wasn't always pretty, but kudos to you for allowing everyone to have the space and keeping everyone together on track and focusing on what was possible instead of what the reality of the situation was. And it was a great point of leadership by you, and the rest of the team too. But being an outsider, seeing it happen, and then watching you guys recover was pretty badass. So that was special, and not without challenge and without heartache, I'm sure. But everyone's still going today and cranking, right?
we're still cranking. We had to downsize a little bit, but very minimally. So we did not lose a lot of people. It forced us to actually look, though, at all the roles and jobs we had, because we were cruising. We were doing great. And during those times, you can get a little fat and be like, hey, this is awesome. I could do this project. I could do this thing. And is it, and I have a lot of bandwidth and room to actually make mistakes. When it comes down and this is such a quick turnaround that, oh my gosh, it's either we're going to keep, working. I had to make some we had to, I didn't do it alone. We had to make some tough calls and tough decisions, and people were understanding of it, the ones in which we had to do that with. And, hopefully someday we can work together in many capacities, different capacities, but we transformed the business. And we're still in progress, 2020. But we ended up, from a top line, almost flat, which consider we lost half our business.
That's crazy, Mark. Saying that out loud is absolutely crazy.
It's nuts. We looked at other product lines, things I would have definitely not never, but I would have not been as quick to do. It forced me to look at other major different revenue streams. What could have been a travesty still may turn out to be an amazing opportunity, because since we lost this, let's call it contracting, it's allowed me the opportunity to actually go engage with that provider payer. And we're moving forward. It's not going to look exactly the same as it did in the years past, but it may be better for us as a company. Right. So I believe the team rose. I definitely saw, to your point, we challenged them. They worked smarter. They all worked hard always, but they definitely worked a lot smarter and held each other accountable, and, didn't hold back, yelled, screamed, whatever, all the things that needed to be said, because everybody had a common goal. And that was really to continue to build this thing. And we are.
Right. And I'll say, a group of highly competent humans. These people could have punched out. A lot of these folks could have said, you know what, I'm an asset. I can go work with someone else. I can go do this. But all the decisions that you guys were making in that moment, I can say I watched them firsthand and was part of them, were about the people, Mark. You guys looked and leaned in and didn't want to do one thing that was unnecessary. You and the partners said, hey, we're going to give this a little more time before we make decisions. We want to make sure we're not out, affecting people's livelihood. Obviously, you have to make decisions in the business as a business owner, but the people forward approach was really, really special to watch. And the fact that you guys ended that year essentially flat is absolutely incredible. Shout out.
It is a little bit less profitable, but good revenue.
Well, less profitable, but you're able to save some face and some potential negative aspects there. I want to jump into a couple leadership things that I try to talk with people about, and these are meant to be off the cuff and first thing that comes to mind. So I'm going to rattle off a few of these, and we'll pick on some of them once we talk about it. So, hardest thing about managing people. What are your thoughts? What's the hardest thing about managing folks?
I think the hardest thing about managing people is meeting people where they're at. It really is the hardest. You have everything, everything's great when you put a plan on paper, but understanding that not everybody is at the same place that maybe I am, or not everybody's unfortunately not in my head, and they're lucky they're not, because it's probably crazy in there. But being able to kind of take down the plans and the action items to that individual and bring them up along the way. People don't do things just because you're the boss. They don't.
Right.
Not in my
Right.
experience, at least not long-standing. And so motivating, getting them to understand, and then teaching them along the way. It's also hard, but it's rewarding.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so rewarding. And you're great at rallying a group of people behind you, next to you, to move the needle forward. And it's not an easy skill, but you make it look graceful. I can assure you of that. You are listening to the Scalability Code. I'm your host, Matt Haney, founder of Sinclair Ventures, and we help visionary entrepreneurs like you get out of the shit show and focus on growing your business. We offer fractional COO and leadership coaching services that free up that brain of yours to focus on what's next. Learn more about us at sinclairventures.com. Now back to it. I do want to ask one question about logistics. You guys are a logistics company. Tell everyone the size of the product and how it works, and then the biggest challenge you can think of around that.
Logistics, interesting. I never would have called us a logistic company, but I would call, but you're actually right in that. So we have a really unique medical device that treats chronic low back pain. I mentioned earlier the MedX lumbar extension machine. But in order for it to actually isolate the lumbar extensor muscles, the machine has a lot of components and it's big. I'll say it's probably the size of a recliner is the best way to describe it. When we first took on the product, and it's not light either. It comes in two pieces. When we first took it on, the first goal was like, hey, can we re-engineer this thing to be smaller? And our partners, the majority of the capital investment was the manufacturer. They helped us redesign it, and they came back with a redesign and made it bigger. And I had to say, well, can you go out and try to load that into the back of a truck or
have someone video that?
Yes. I'm like, have you guys tried to actually deliver this? Because we have to carry it up flights of stairs.
Yeah.
So that's been the biggest obstacle for us thus far. Now we don't completely outright own the product. So we're not in any rush to try to spend a bunch of money to re-engineer it. The holding company, if you will, they're not either. They're just a group of investors. So eventually we will, but what we had to look at is, okay, how are we going to deliver this product? And at that point we had no money. We had to make a decision of, well, we need to start leasing vans and teaching people how to actually correctly lift this, making sure we had to pre-screen people to ensure that they can actually lift 75 to 100 pounds, because that's what you have to do. And so we never anticipated that in the initial business plan. But now we have like a fleet of like 30 minivans. So if you become a sales rep here and you get an awesome like Dodge Chrysler or Chrysler, minivan, we could fit 2 to 3 machines in there. So we have a warehouse here in Austin. We manufacture the devices in Green Bay. They're shipped here to Austin. And then from here to Austin, we deploy them we're operating about 18 different states. Currently have about 24 sales reps. They each have an individual storage unit where the inventory sits. It's a rental device. So when they get an approved order paid for by the insurance, they then take the machine, deploy it to the patient's home, show them how to use it. Patient keeps it for about 90 days. And then we go back, pick it back up, clean it, redeploy it. If they malfunction, which very rarely happens, we ship them back to Austin. So so much of the cost is embedded in the shipping and in delivery of the product. So it's an expensive business to run, but until the device can be shippable directly to the patient,
right,
it is what it is.
But that's also what makes the device as unique, as successful as it is that it is significant. It's consequential, meaning it's not something that is a flimsy piece of something that goes on the floor.
Correct.
It's a legit,
when it goes
that provides results.
All medical device, almost every piece of DME actually works, I would say. The biggest issue you have is compliance. That's the number one objection when you go through is, will somebody use it? one, this device actually works, as many do. But one of the enhancements that we have is that it is big. You can't just walk by and forget about it. And you
No,
want to get it out of, you want to use it so you can get it out of your house.
exactly. You want to get well and get it out of there. Yeah.
Yep.
And then once you're well, you want the people that delivered it to come pick the damn thing up and get it out of there.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you
Exactly.
start hanging towels on it and your jacket on it. And so
Yep.
that's awesome. All right. So, what's been the hardest part about working with your business partners who you've known for years, who you love and trust, or probably at your wedding, maybe, I don't know, or some way? What's been the biggest challenge there?
So the biggest challenge, right? So four of them, again, three of them I've known. One of them I've known. We played football in college. We've known each other since 1995. It's my best friends. The two that came in from MedX, we didn't know at all. We got married really quickly. And so the initial part of like, it was like an arranged marriage.
Yeah.
So there wasn't the beginning was really understanding, our work model in there and how they work. And it was really onboarding the team together, which took a lot of effort. Like it did. We weren't best friends immediately on their part and ours. And so that'd be having honest, truthful, tough conversations, navigating those. That was the hard part. Working with my partners, the guys that actually, worked with me for 15 or plus years, or I've known for 30. The hardest part is actually, making sure that we're honest with each other and also still trying to protect our relationship as well.
Right.
So right. I think some of the hard part has been, like in any relationship, sometimes you don't say the thing you really think because you're fearful of offending the other person.
Right.
And so we have learned and continue to learn to begin to try to say the hard things as soon as they start to bubble up and not wait. And as a result of that, actually our relationships are becoming a lot stronger.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And you guys do an annual or a couple trips a year or something together to do planning and have some sort of a time to get to know each other and hopefully put some work aside. But obviously all you guys do is talk about work, figure out how to make it better.
Yeah. We adopted EOS in 2022 rather. We had an implementer, but it really was still, it was just the one day with the implementer, then we try to run it. And that forced us to have, quarterlies where we as the executive team or leadership team got together. But then we had other intentional, practices to try to just spend some time going through some, challenges or things that are outside of work. We had one where we brought in deals and took our entire management team through a 1-day mini buds camp here in Austin.
That's cool.
And that was really cool because it forced people to get really out of their comfort zones. And those types of things, bring teams together. And the stuff we went through in December really was transformative in the team's dynamic and relationship.
That's awesome. All right, I'm going to keep us moving to the next topic, one I'm really excited about. You are one of the few people I know that owns a donut franchise. You have to tell us this. This is great because, Mr., I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm just a sales guy. Now I'm running this huge business. And at some point you decided very openly, which I love, that you're gonna start a donut franchise. Tell us that story. How did you get there? And I want to know.
That would be one that is still evolving, right? So yes. So we live out on the bridge of Dripping Springs in Austin and on 290. And there is no donut shop that was close. For the whole time we lived here for almost 13 years now. So we have 4 kids. Our older 2 daughters loved Shipley donuts. And the closest Shipley is a 20 to 25 minute one-way trip, right? So we used to go all the time when we lived down in Circle C. That is one on Brody Lane. So about a decade, maybe more than that ago, my wife had expressed interest and I looked into the franchise. And at the time wasn't right. And during COVID, she got it in. I'm going to credit my wife to some of this, that, hey, we should do this. If we don't do it, somebody else is going to.
She's not wrong.
She's not. And so I did a little due diligence. I want to say not enough, but I was quite busy. I couldn't do it alone. So I had a buddy of mine who always wanted to, work for himself. He and I formed a company and we went out and we visited Shipley. At the time, Shipley was still owned by the Shipley family. And we bought into the franchise. My whole plan was to put up the money and he was going to run it. It took forever and a
Just
day.
like that, right?
Just done.
Done.
Invest much money, it's easy. It took
Yeah.
forever and a day for Shipley to approve a location. And they have 86 years of success. They had very few franchises fail because they put so much time into the location. We picked a location, then we had to negotiate the lease, and it was a brand new build. And so we were a cap end out in Dripping and corner of Sawyer Ranch in 290. Well, that took forever for them to get all their permits. So we bought into the franchise in 21. We opened doors in March last year of 25.
Whoa.
So it took 4 years, right? During that time frame, some of it, through the entrepreneurial thing of what's going on, we're putting capital in. And then I had a thought like, I don't need to put all my money in this, and I'm going to, go raise some capital. So I went to actually some of my current partners and some others. I had some people put some money in, so I didn't have to put all of our money in. Also during that time, the guy that was going to run it backed out of it. He had a life change thing. And so we were ready. I had already signed the lease, personally guaranteed, 10-year lease, by the way. And it was July of 24, this happened. And we were on vacation, and I hang up the phone and I go to my wife and I say, Brian can't do it. And which was the funniest thing. She goes, well, I guess I'll have to do it. And I'm like, yeah, that's
That's funny. That's cute.
Like,
yeah.
Thank you for that. You're not waking up at 2 a.m. to make donuts. So I had one other friend I could think of initially who we were on the same dorm floor in college. He was a wrestler. He lives here in Austin. So, and he actually had food service experience, and he runs operations for a decent sized tech company here in Austin. So I brought him. He's a super hardest working guy I've ever met in my life. So I called him up that same day. I kind of told him what was going on, offered him equity in the company. And long and short of it, he joined up and he continues to work his job very effectively. And he took over and he went to all the training. He has done a fantastic job, learned a lot. We opened the doors, like I say, in March. We took off really great. It's been a learning experience over the last 9 months. So they went down also really quickly. We found the obstacles were hiring. All the financial models were based on Houston and maybe others, not Austin. It also did not account for all the changes, and probably hadn't been updated since minimum wage went to $15 an hour. Everybody,
which is crazy.
So some of that stuff has to be worked out, but he's become very efficient in the ordering and people planning. And so I will have to say, we kept having to put money into it up until the last 4 months.
That's great.
Actually, we have not had to put $1 into it, and we actually have been able to now start to pay some money back.
There you go.
And now as we move into the next realm, I've realized I have to take a bigger hand in it. And as does my wife. So the next phase is just more marketing and getting more, regular business from churches and school functions, being out in the community. These are things I enjoy doing. But I will say the learning, the thing that really was benefit is one, doing my due diligence. I would have done it a little bit more. But having that right partner, and it goes back to the people aspect of everything, having the right person, that was the best advice I've ever been given. If you hire the right person, your job's easy. I essentially did hire him, and he's doing a great job. And so we have plans to open up more, and we got to get this one dialed in first. But we will open up more franchises. May not just be Shipley, but our goal is to open up more franchises in the next 3 to 5 years.
So in that experience, did you find a unique passion or some part of it? I know it's not all roses and sunshine, but is there something that gave you energy that allowed you to give back to Converge during a really tough time?
For sure. And even most recently. So and this is the coolest story, because Converge, I'm running through all the stuff with Converge. I have another company too that it's a whole other story. So we're running through all these things, facing challenges than ever, still trying to figure out the Shipley. I'm pumping money into it.
Yep.
My wife's asking, why are we doing certain things? I'm like, well, our money's in donuts right now, right? We had our Christmas party, and we did it just at Pious Pizza, if you've ever been down.
Yeah, it's great.
So we have these two bakers, and they were here on asylum from Venezuela. And we hired them in like August. They lost their visas and we had to let them go. And then they actually came back in late October, November, and they had regained asylum and regained their visas. Barely speak a word of English. So we invited them, said everybody can, come on to the pizza party. They brought their entire family, which was fun, right? So they had them and their four or five kids. So we're just, there's like 15 people there. It's just not really big. He asks if he can say something, a toast, if you will. But, so he gets up and he says something completely in Spanish. I should know Spanish. My last name's Cortez, but I don't. And so one of the other girls there that speaks Spanish, she interpreted for him. And this guy goes on for about 5 minutes. One, grateful and thankful that we hired them both back. He and his wife both work there. 2, how much of a family atmosphere the company is and how much he values. And 3, thanking God and really thanking America in the United States. It was like, I was just like, I turned to my partner. I'm like, we got to open up 10 of these.
Exactly.
So it was really being able to give that opportunity to somebody and them taking, it really, for me, it was like, well, that's the American dream right there, right? Because these 2 people work, they don't stop moving. But they saw the bad side of really what was going on in Venezuela and coming here and actually not just asking for something, but actually giving something. And then we just provided the platform for them to do.
That's right.
And it was so awesome to see. And I came back and it's the same thing that keeps energizing me over again and again, even with Converge. It's that, and I just said this morning, it's that creating these opportunities and helping people where they take advantage of it. And then that helps the company grow. It helps me grow. And it's really awesome to watch that happen. So that was like super duper inspirational.
It's so fun to, like you said, give people a platform and watch them run with it and take advantage of it in the best of ways, right? See it's an opportunity and go with it. And I think as we build you and I build leaders for our career, like when you give someone that opportunity and they take it, it's a very rewarding place to see
so
that.
much.
That's awesome.
So.
Well, I love getting to know you, Mark, and I love your passion, your drive, and I love watching people around you. Like you put good people in good places, and they're successful. So that's been great to watch. So let's wrap up this episode, but I look forward to coming back and hearing more about the donut stories and obviously the logistics business disguised as a durable medical device. So thanks for joining us today on the Scalability Code.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Scalability Code. If you made it this far, please follow the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get out of this show together. We'll see you next time on the Scalability Code.